There's two ways that a first-past-the-post voting system can manifest. If you're delusional, like Canadians, Brits, and certain Americans, you believe that you can have more than two political parties, and that's just fine. Fuck you, I don't want to have to pick between the top two, I want my own party. The problem, of course, is that this splits the vote, and almost inevitably leads to people winning without the majority of the vote. In fact, it happens all the time. It regularly leads to majorities in Parliament that got less than 40% of the total vote. Because in so many ridings, the vote was split, and they won with, a third, 35%, 40% of the vote. So even though most of the people in these countries often don't want the current ruling party to be in charge of them, because they refuse to stop forming more political parties, they end up with this minoritarian rule, an oligarchy, if you will. It's better than a strict, one-party state oligarchy, but it nevertheless means that a minority gets to boss around a majority quite often. It doesn't have to produce this result, but it requires a lot more societal consensus to avoid it. The other possibility is the way that the US does it, where, while a few percent often do get shaved off by the Libertarian Party, so sometimes in close elections you might not get more than 50% of the vote if you win. Practically speaking, almost all of the time, whoever wins an election in the US has the majority of the vote, because there's only really two parties that people vote for. So it's more democratic in that sense. The problem is that the parties function like companies in an oligopoly. Because there's only one real alternative to them, they do have to give in to popular demand somewhat, because they don't want to lose to the other guy, but they only have to do the bare minimum. They don't have to go the extra mile, because it's like, what are you going to do? Vote for the other guy? Neither of these is particularly true to the will of the majority, which is the principle that democracies are supposed to be based on. Which is why systems that use ranked balloting or proportional representation are superior to them. Unfortunately, the first-past-the-post, as one of the oldest forms of voting, thus one that's usually enshrined into law a long time ago, is rather difficult to change, and it doesn't really benefit the existing political parties to ever change it. If you're in one of these countries, you're pretty much stuck with it, unfortunately. And so the best solution is not to advocate for systemic change, but rather to try and galvanize people to massively back two parties. If you're in the delusional countries, and if you're in the US, I don't know, run for office yourself if you don't like the people currently there. There isn't really much of a solution to it, unfortunately, because they don't have any reason or drive to be too flexible with voter demands. It's just the nature of it.